What's up, everybody? My name's James. I go by JSR, and this is a short video just to go over my stream setup and what I see, how my stream setup is built, and to kind of give you guys some tips if you want to set up similar to mine, as I get this question often. So this is for people who want a RGB setup. They want good quality for streaming. Money isn't as much of an issue in some cases, and for those of you who are money is not, this is my setup. Feel free to leave in the comments any setups that you have that are different. If there's something you feel like I could do it better, I'm more than willing to give it a shot. Most of this is stuff that I've developed or come up with through trial and error. So I've bought plenty of equipment that has gone to waste. I have spent thousands of dollars to get this set up to where I like it. And it's still not done yet. In fact, this TV right here is my Sony Wega Trinitron. It's a 36-inch. Only does 480i. I don't believe it, or I know it does 240p. I don't know if it does 480i, to be honest with you. Everything I run through this TV is 240p. This is pure RGB. I don't know if you could see that very well, but it's pretty darn clear. It is pretty nice. Now, you might be thinking, well, this is not a BVM or a PVM. How do you get such a sharp picture? Well, I will show you. So, when I'm playing, I'm sitting in my gamer chair, and that's the view I get. And it's pretty good. And like I said, this TV is nice. It's going to get replaced, though, because I do plan on getting a PVM. In fact, I'm working on that as we speak, so hopefully soon. That's the monitor where I read chat. Camera right there, and a bunch of equipment we'll go into in a minute. There's my NES and my twin Famicom microphone, all set up nice and within reach, all the remotes and various things. Little Z stickers, those are important. Those are very important. Second monitor, I use this. What's up, Spark? I use this for Z Helper, OBS. Sometimes the IRC is up on this window, and then I use my second monitor for chat and for splits. So it's pretty convenient. Soundbar, I usually leave it off. It's more for when I'm just playing for fun. Now, these consoles share an RGB cable, 8-pin mini to SCART, and then you probably can't see it very well right now, so let me open this glass case of emotion up. Right there, Philips CDI, Sega Master System, Atari 2600, Super NES, Nintendo 64, and an NES. With the exception of the NES, all of these consoles are modified for RGB output. The CDI and the 2600 output using the same 8-pin setup that my NES uses. Obviously, the N64 and the Super NES use the proprietary Nintendo multi-out to SCART, and then the Master System uses, I think it's Model 1 Genesis without the stereo RGB out. This NES is actually not RGB modded. That is HDMI modded. It's not hooked up at the moment, mostly because I just don't use it anymore. But it is fully operational. It's got a blinking light win installed on it, and is in perfect condition. That used to be my hero console, if you will, but now it just sits there, kind of as a backup. This works, it's just not hooked up. That's a Japanese Nintendo 64 with a 64 disk drive, fully operational. And then just a couple boxes and guides and stuff, nothing special. That hooks up to the same power supply the American version uses. It's a slightly different voltage, but it works just fine. And it's not RGB modded, but it still works with this cable right here, which is a official NES, or official Nintendo S-video cable. So if I ever want to use my 64 disk drive, it's ready to go at a moment's whim. And my CPU, it's just a basic CPU. I think it's a 8-core, 3600 megahertz, 16 gigabytes of DDR8 RAM or something like that. It's cool. It does what it needed to do. And then on this side, Super Famicom with the Satellaview. Both of them work. Obviously, the Satellaview is useless these days, but it works. I can't hook it up without getting that box that's behind it out because the power supply it takes is different. And then just some miscellaneous stuff. Repro of Star Fox 2, my 3 Super Game Boys, Zelda 2 Nintendo Power, Zelda 2 Nintendo Fun Club News. And now we get my, it looks purple, but it's actually silver, GameCube with the Japanese Game Boy player. Nintendo Wii, Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation 1, Xbox One, or Xbox Original, I should say, PlayStation 2, and Genesis. Somewhere in there's a 32X, but I don't use it, so I don't even leave it on. Obviously, that outputs RGB. The PlayStation 1 outputs RGB. The Xbox, PS2, Wii, and the GameCube all hooked up via component to a switch. The Dreamcast is currently only hooked up with RGB. I'd like to get it eventually to work with VGA, but this monitor doesn't support it at 480p, so I'm going to work on that at some point. Once I get a PVM, and hopefully I can use VGA output. These are all hooked up at the moment, ready to use at a moment's notice. My PlayStation 1 and my Dreamcast output to this HAMA 3-to-1 SCART switch. The third port, this guy, doesn't work. That's why you see no, because I tried to mod it and failed. And then PS3, Xbox 360, and I want to say the original Xbox. I'll go to this switcher, and that goes from that powered Lona switcher to this powered at Lona switcher, which you can barely see in this mass of wires, where my PlayStation 2, that switch box, and my Wii, I believe, all go to this one, as well as this guy. That is an RGB SCART to component converter. I forget what model, but it's on eBay. It's cheap. It was like $40. And it works perfectly. That's what you're seeing here. This is RGB converted to component. There's no noise. It's crystal clear, lag-free. I mean, it is. It's lag-free. I can speedrun just fine. That was kind of cool. And if there is lag, it's imperceptible to me. I would have to slow the video down to see it. Let me see if I can do it again. So it's pretty good for me. I can speedrun using this, and it does just fine for me. All of my NES, N64, Super NES, Master System, Genesis, and the other SCART switcher go to this here. There we go. Shiny Bow 6x2 SCART switcher. There's my capture card, Elgato HD60. All of those SCART cables output to this guy, which, remember, it's a 6x2, so it has dual outputs. And the other SCART goes to the FrameMeister. Now, this ends at the TV. This does not end at the TV. This outputs at 720p. You can output it at 1080p if you want. But I have that going out to the capture card, which is up there. You just saw it a minute ago. There it is. And then that has a pass-through, which goes to this box here. This is a HDMI to composite S-video converter. And I have that hooked up to my television in case I need to change FrameMeister settings. I can see the menus and mess with stuff like that. So that was expensive. I actually bought that when I was attempting to get my HDMI NES to output to this TV, and was unsuccessful. It was laggy, it was bad quality, but it still serves a purpose, so it's still part of my setup. So probably unnecessary if you're trying to get your setup similar. And yeah, the reason my cables are all tangled up back there, for anybody who's going to leave nasty comments like, oh god, yeah, this TV weighs more than me. And once I get my PVM, hopefully I'll be able to get back there and dress them, but that thing's heavy, and I've already dropped it once, as you can see. So I'm not trying to mess with it. It's fine for now. It's perfectly fine. That's all audio video. People are going to say, that's a fire hazard. No, that's all audio video. There's no fire hazard with that. All my power cables are dressed nicely down to power strips that have surge protectors. So I'm good. And as long as I'm not turning all these consoles on at the same time, it's perfectly fine. Over here, I've got just a collection of DVDs. And then Xbox 360, which outputs HDMI at the moment to this HDMI splitter, or this HDMI switch, excuse me. PS3 outputting component, PS4 outputting HDMI, Wii U, and Nintendo Switch all outputting HDMI to this guy. The reason I don't use HDMI on my PS3 is that it has a HDCP encoding, so it's it doesn't really make it very easy to play into a capture card. It's difficult and doesn't work right, and it sucks. So I don't bother. That's a 4-to-1 HDMI switch. It just, those 4 consoles HDMI, that's fine. And then just a Xbox 360 Connect and some other stuff. So wireless keyboard, mouse. Well, the mouse isn't wireless, but I have a wireless mouse. I just don't use it very often because this thing has like a 10-foot cable on it. And then gamer chair. That's the background you guys see. This is pretty much my webcam's point of view, but in much better quality in this video. So a lot of the details you probably don't see on stream because it's a webcam. You kind of see a little better here. At some point, I'm going to upgrade my webcam so you can see it a little better. I'd like to get a more clear webcam, but this is most of my collection. And since this isn't really a collection video, I'll just give you guys a quick visual shot of everything. All my Zelda amiibos, Power Glove, Zelda Game & Watch, NES, GameCube, Super NES, Nintendo Wii, N64, and loose Genesis, Intellivision, Atari. You can't really see them, but there's Famicom games right there. And they're stacked up. I actually have more than that. Sega CD, Master System, Box and Television, Genesis, Zelda Player's Guides right there. Those are sick. Repro. That is a repro. Don't let that fool you. That is a repro. That is not. That's cool. Real Rob the Robot, Famicom, FDS, all working. Virtual Boy working. Wii U gamepad. Just a lot of cool stuff that I've been collecting over the years that I just think is really neat. More stuff over here. Undertale Collector's Edition. Wii U. Xbox 360. Xbox. More PS2. I'll say the reason I say more is you'll see why in a minute. Dreamcast. FDS. 64 disc drive. CDI. And Super Famicom. And then just some cool stuff in this case. Just some random stuff. Some amiibos, some statues, some other stuff, boxed Famicom, Super Famicom. And then my NES, Super NES Classic Editions, PS4, Switch, PS3, PS2, which remember I was saying I had a bunch of that, and then PS1. And finally some controllers. These are all modern controllers. All my retro stuff is in those, are in those bins right there. That's NES, Super NES, N64, Dreamcast, GameCube, etc. But all my current and relatively current gen stuff is right here. I've got a couple PS3 controllers as well, but they're not here at the moment. They're in another room. So, Stream Deck, a couple buttons I use when I'm streaming. Not really necessary. I don't even have it hooked up at the moment because I've got my second webcam hooked up. That's controller cam. So that way, if I ever need to show inputs, either if I'm getting proof called or if somebody just wants to see, for demonstration purposes, hey, how do you do this maneuver? I can show my controller off and people can see. And so it's a pretty complex setup for sure. It's definitely a complex setup. And the reason I went through great lengths to get the setup the way I got it is because for me, what I wanted was high quality gameplay while being able to simultaneously output in high quality for the stream. And I should have already had this pulled up, so I'm going to try to do this while I talk. But I wanted to be able to make my stream look as nice as possible while still allowing for lag-free gameplay at the highest possible quality on my end. And I feel like I've done that successfully, as you'll be able to see in a minute. Inception! Hi! And there it is. And it's kind of hard to tell on here, but that is at 720p direct capture RGB through the FrameMeister. So that way I'm able to have high quality for the stream while still having high quality lag-free gameplay for myself. So if you're interested in RGB, that's probably the way to go. It's expensive. It's a pain in the ass. A lot of these parts aren't cheap. They're not easy to find in the United States. If you're in Europe, usually it's a little easier for you. If you're in Japan, there's the JP21, which is more common there than SCART. Either one would work. You could even do your own mods if you wanted with just 8-pin mini DINs. You don't even need SCART cables, technically. I have a bunch of 8-pin mini DIN cables I think I showed earlier in the video up there, just chilling, because I haven't been able to find a switch that doesn't cause sync to drop. So until I find one, those are just, I have to swap those out. But SCART switches perfectly. So that's the only real benefit of using SCART, is that you don't have to, if you get a shiny bow, I can't speak for anything else. I had a Banridge 6-1 and it was okay. But the shiny bow is what I recommend. I know there's other SCART switches out there. So go with what you like the best, but yeah, it's expensive. It was a pain in the neck, but here she is in all her lag-free, close to RGB glory. And like I was saying before, I mean, I can't complain. That is very nice looking and pretty much lag-free. I'm going to try to play with one hand for a minute. This is going to be hard. Yeah. Oh god, this is so hard with one hand. Anyways, so that's my collection video. Well, I mean, excuse me, my stream setup video. Not a collection video. Even though I showed a little bit of collection at the end of it. If you like this video, feel free to share it. It's meant for people who are speedrunners. People who are looking to upgrade their setups for RGB. People who are trying to get good, high-quality streams for their viewers, you know what I'm saying? So, this may not work for you, this may not be the setup for you, but it works for me and it's pretty neat. It's expensive. Anyways, if you have questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll try to do my best to help. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys on the stream. Take care, everybody.